Hi everyone, T20 World Cup Daily from the Pavilion. I'm Carter Krishnaiyer. We are simulcasting on Beyond the 90 as we do whenever the United States plays. And you can find us on Beyond the 90, on Beyond the Boundary, and from the Pavilion's YouTube page. And you can find us on Beyond the 90 and the Beyond the Boundary newsletter as part of Beyond the 90, and also on Beyond the 90's YouTube page. That is a soccer site. Football site, depending which part of the world you live in. We call that sport by different names. We are brought to you each and every day by the Boca Raton Tribune, your local voice, your closest neighbor if you're in South Florida, the best hyper-local news coverage in South Florida, and also, quite frankly, the best cricket coverage in the state of Florida, and some of the best soccer coverage, for those of you watching on Beyond the 90, in the state of Florida, at least local soccer coverage in South Florida. So we had a great day at the T20 World Cup. Real quickly, West Indies smashed Nepal as expected, although Nepal, again, had that great effort in the first match against England, which maybe said more about England than it did about Nepal. So let's get that match out of the way. Today's two big matches were India versus Pakistan down in Colombo. We're going to deal with that match first because India crushed Pakistan, as they now have become accustomed to doing. Once again, and also the U.S.-Namibia match in Chennai at the Chepauk. Another good performance for the U.S., which keeps the United States alive in this tournament. I was expecting to tape a post-mortem about the U.S. tournament today. Now, it very well might be the U.S.'s last match, depending on what happens in the Pakistan-Namibia match on Wednesday. But for now, the U.S. is alive with a superior run rate to Pakistan. This is really critical when we look at Group A. The run rate for the United States now better than Pakistan, which it was not, by the way, in the last World Cup when the U.S. advanced. And the U.S. advanced because there was a rainout in the U.S.-Ireland match, giving a no decision, and the U.S. got a point. This time, the U.S., I think, has probably performed better than in the last World Cup, but did not beat Pakistan and did not have maybe the good fortune of a rainout to pick up an extra point. We'll get to the U.S. later. Let's talk about India and Pakistan first. I looked at the way both of these teams played against the United States and thought Pakistan had a chance to beat India. But we know India is in Pakistan's head, although, quite frankly, India is in everyone's head at this point. They've won 26 of their last 27 matches in ICC events. The only loss was that 2023 World Cup final defeat. We're talking about the one-day World Cup. To Australia, which came against the flow of the tournament, where India had just crushed everybody to get to that final. Then they won every match in the 2024 T20 World Cup, won every match last year in the tournament. They had to play in Dubai because they couldn't go to Pakistan, and so far three matches, 3 wins in this T20 World Cup. In the last two T20 World Cups, they have really been pushed in 3 matches. That's it. The final against South Africa last time in Barbados, and each time they played the United States for some strange reason. The U.S. has pushed India in both matches, and you can point to individual moments where the U.S. may have blown their chance to beat India. But quite frankly, India mentally, and I'm making comparisons again with soccer, football, the sport I've worked in the past. India's mentality these last few years reminds me of Germany in their heyday in football, or Italy, or Manchester United, or now Manchester City until the last 2 seasons. It doesn't matter what goes on in matches. They're going to find a way. They're going to grind it out. They're going to grit it out. And today, they didn't really have to do that. Pakistan made some strange tactical decisions. Let's talk about first winning the toss and then electing to bowl in Colombo, where the chasing team, which has been Pakistan in 2 matches already on the same ground, the chasing team has won due to the conditions. The chasing team has tended to not win in Colombo, with the exception of random matches here and there. Pakistan, as we saw, had posted scores against the United States and hung on. And it allowed India to kind of post a score and stick with it. Then I think maybe Pakistan made the wrong decisions in terms of bowlers in the power play. They just couldn't find their rhythm. And this was after Abhishek went for a duck, right? And they got his wicket in the first over. But then after that, Kishan comes in and just drills them. And there was all sorts of variation in the attack. So I think Pakistan was thinking, based on the U.S. match, let's go with some spin in the power play. We had gone when we went with spin, we were able to control the U.S.'s flow of runs. When we went with pace, the U.S. was hitting us hard. So that in mind, and they also saw how the U.S. had slowed down India's attack in Mumbai with medium pacers and with spinners, but it didn't work. And then you had a situation where they saved Tariq until the middle overs, and he too struggled to find his rhythm. There were some good balls he delivered again, and this is a player I really like, and him as a bowler, right? We can make jokes about how he held the bat at the end. He was the last man in the order for Pakistan. He was always going to lose his wicket. It's just a matter of how many. You didn't want him on strike at all if you were Pakistan at that point, but you needed runs. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I felt like there was a real kind of poor performance from the Pakistani bowlers. And they were allowing India to keep a flow of runs going. And then there was a point where in the middle overs where Indian batters decide, you know what, we're not going to chase balls. We're going to take dot balls. We're going to see what the bowlers are offering us. And then we're going to try and go for 4s and 6s. And this started with Kishan, right? It started with his batting, and didn't need as much from Sky today, but they were able to post a number. This is the key. They posted a number, and then Pakistan had to chase. And then Pakistan's chasing, and I don't want to get into specifically Pakistan's record against India recently, but it's bad. And this is one of the biggest rivalries in this sport, or in all of world sport. And it's becoming a lot like, make another football analogy, and another analogy with Germany, the way the England-Germany rivalry was going for years in football. We hear about this being the biggest rivalry. What a rivalry. But England could not compete with Germany for long stretches of time. And in every major tournament, Germany would get further. And that's where I kind of feel we are with India and Pakistan. And while the ICC has a need to put them in the same groups in these tournaments, like they did at the Champions Cup, that match had to be in Dubai last year, like they do in every T20 World Cup, in order to get the big television number. These matches are becoming less and less compelling. And I really thought this time Pakistan, the way they've come into this tournament, the way they had struggled in times in the first 3 matches, but they got through them, this could be the chance to beat India. We saw how sloppy India looked against the United States. There were moments in the game against Namibia where India didn't look great, but this was just a demolition derby. So let's talk about Pakistan's batting, or India's bowling. Chasing 176, Pakistan was effectively out of the game by the end of the power play, giving up 4 wickets against Bumrah's pace, which we know Bumrah is back. That's a big part of India's bowling attack. And then Hardik was good. Dubey was phenomenal in the field. And then India goes in the middle overs with some pace. Aksar does what he does. And Varun was better than I've seen him for India. I mean, really, just absolutely perplexed the Pakistani batters. And there was not a whole lot more. I mean, you know, we could get into deeper analysis of this, but it was such a one-sided, poor performance, really, from Pakistan. There's not much we can say. So let's talk about Pakistan and their chances to advance, because they now need to beat Namibia. They are behind the United States on run rate, so if they lose that match, the United States will advance. The U.S. started with a great partnership. We talked about Manak changing. So one change in the team today, Netravalkar was in. Kengeji, who I back, I favor, I rate, back out of the side. So he ends up playing one match in this World Cup unless the U.S. advances, which is unfortunate. But he did get a wicket. He did bowl a Dutch bowler out on his very first delivery of the tournament. So he'll always have that. But Netravalkar was solid today. But let's talk about the U.S. bats first. Manak has a half century. He and Cheyenne, again, really good partnership. The kind of partnership maybe the U.S. needed in the first two matches when House was the first batter and didn't perform well. So the U.S. had 65 after the first 6 overs, and it was effectively done at that point. Now, the question is, what would you do to kind of get the net run rate out? You could argue that we didn't do as much as we could have. But Pakistan gets beaten so badly by India, it doesn't matter, right? If NRR comes into play, the U.S. has the advantage because of how poorly. Keep in mind, even though Pakistan beat the U.S. Crushed the Netherlands, and Pakistan barely beat them. And that against India, the U.S. was much more competitive. So that's why the U.S.'s net run rate is higher than Pakistan's. And so this is kind of similar with the reverse teams of what happened in the last World Cup. Pakistan was more competitive against India than the U.S. was, and they in theory they were more competitive, but the U.S. there were key moments in that game where the U.S. Blew it, but still run rate they were more competitive. And then against Canada they killed Canada, whereas the U.S. barely beat Canada. So Pakistan's run rate ended up higher than the U.S., even though the U.S. ended up with more points in advance. Seems like the same thing is going to happen in reverse this time. Pakistan will probably beat Namibia. They probably won't have the same run rate as the U.S. unless they beat Namibia by 50 runs, which they might. But Manak gets a half century. The U.S. doesn't lose a wicket until after the power play. It was effectively over at that point. 65 runs and did not give up a wicket. And then in the middle of the order, Sanjay went for an explosion, sort of like he did in the India game. And he and Milland renewed that partnership we saw that was so good in the India match, which ended when Milland made the mistake, right? Milland makes the mistake. He thinks the wicketkeeper has bobbled the ball, or he has bobbled the ball, but he thinks it's gone past the wicketkeeper. He takes off, loses his wicket. India wins the match. That was when the match was won for India. Now, India maybe had gotten an advantage out of those last few overs when Ali Khan couldn't bowl and Netravalkar had to bowl in our innings. But then I think the match decisively turned towards India when Milland made that mistake. And if he hadn't made that mistake, 161, is that what India had? 161 was definitely chaseable at the Vakande. I mean, it's a high scoring ground. So that partnership is renewed. No mental mistakes today, and they had an 87 run partnership, and it was over. Now let's talk about our bowling. Shubham, who it was one of the leading run scorers in this tournament, but didn't get the bat today because we were so effective, and so he didn't really get to add to that total. He was back bowling, and his slower balls really worked in the middle of the order to get us some wickets, because Namibia had a good power play. They were 57 over 1 after at the end of the power play, and Steenkamp had kept them in the hunt, 58 off of 39 balls. And so they were at 97 over 1. We'd only taken 1 wicket through 10 overs. And at that point, you're thinking, okay, the run rate might slow down, but they're going to get to 170 or 180, and this is going to be very close. We were on 199, and we're not going to do enough in the run rate. And you never know. You start batting for power, you start making mistakes in the field, they might get to 200, and you lose. So then there was a real discipline. Shubham Ranjane with the bowling. Very, very good. Vance Scalwick again picked up a couple wickets. Harmeet bowled fairly well. And Netravalkar and Ali Khan got some overs towards the end of the match, and we were able to slow down their run rate. But they got their full 20 overs, and we didn't take as many wickets as maybe we needed to. So I think one of the things that I really liked about how we bowled today is that the Chepauk pitch became harder to hit as each innings went on. Our innings and Namibia's innings. So the U.S. was able to really utilize this in smart decisions by Manak, with a lot of variation, changes to the pace in the middle innings, and disciplined field setups. We didn't see sort of the clunky field setups that quite frankly might have cost the U.S. the match against India. Although, as I've said before, India has a way of winning matches. They have this mentality, this mental fortitude that no one else in this sport seems to have currently, and reminds me of Germany in football back in the day, or Manchester City, Manchester United, Manchester City, Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United, or if you're a fan of American sports, the Chicago Bulls under Phil Jackson, right? With Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. They have that vibe to them. So maybe we were never going to win that match, even though there are these key moments where it appeared we would, just because India finds a way. But that was important, I think, the field setup and how we bowled those middle overs. We won this match because Namibia did create a bunch of runs, because Sanjay did not give up his wicket easily as he did against Pakistan and against the Netherlands. And he was able to bat deep into the final overs. And at that point, you have really a lot of flow in the match. And Milland also, no mistakes this time. So you had a set partnership, and you had a set kind of guy you wanted on strike in Sanjay Krishnamurthy. And I think the thing that we've learned from this tournament, we'll do the tournament postmortem whenever the U.S. is out, but in Sanjay Krishnamurthy and Mukamala, two young American-born and raised cricketers, we have two potential superstars of this game who are already on the international level and who have developed because of Major League Cricket and the other development tools that we have in this country. And as Manak said after the Netherlands match to the ICC, give us more resources. The Associated Nations need more resources. This sport's becoming more competitive. It's becoming more competitive through the middle ranks. Maybe not more competitive at the top, because it just feels like India's unbeatable at this point. But we'll see. West Indies, South Africa, they might be able to beat them in a one-off match. This is why maybe we like this form of cricket, because you can have a one-off match and beat someone. Whereas if you're doing 3-day tests and 5-day tests, it's very hard at this point to beat India the way they're going, and very hard to beat Australia in test. And it feels like it's just those two countries right now. But that's a subject for another time, maybe way out into the future. But this was good, and the qualification for the Super 8 now completely depends on the Pakistan-Namibia game, as I mentioned. So that match is Wednesday. The U.S. is still alive until Wednesday. The team will hang around. The players who have been out of the team the last few matches, House being one, obviously Kengeje today, and you had for blanking out his name, who came in from the former Pakistani bowler. Those guys, Ephraim, those guys you need to keep kind of fit and on side, because you might need them if you advance. You're going to need them, and you're going to have 3 more matches if you advance. Can Namibia beat Pakistan? It's unlikely, but I saw Namibia give England a good match in a reduced overs match in the last World Cup, where down in Barbados, where there was a similar situation where Namibia had nothing to play for, and England needed to win to advance. And there were some, what you tend to say is Rashid and Jafar Archer sometimes have some very bad overs bowling. And that happened in that match, and Namibia stayed in it. I think it was a 10-over match. England did enough because they had to get their net run rate above Scotland, if I remember correctly. So they did enough, but Namibia gave them a match, and maybe they give them a match, Pakistan and Colombo. The thing about Pakistan is Pakistan's mentality has been questionable these last few years, and just in the same fashion, they found a way to lose to the United States when the United States needed, I think we needed 12 off of 3 balls to just send it to a super over. And then we got 20 in the super over. Pakistan's mentality sometimes when they have to close is not there. So there's a chance. We'll be back with you tomorrow.